Can you talk a little bit about the Treaty of Verdun?
We have the Civil War. Um, by 8:41 on a Saturday morning, the weather seems to have been pretty nice. June 25th, 8:41, in this little village of Fontenoy. Um, Not particularly important, not a big significant, it's not a river crossing, it's not a capital, it's not, it's not Paris, it's not Aachen. It's just a place where the armies all of the armies meet up and decide, okay, I think we're going to win. Let's have a battle. And all the sides think that they're going to win or at least might win and decide to have a battle. And there are lots of near battles before this, but essentially one side always successfully runs away, which is a normal thing to do. No
Hmm.
one, it's not about bravery. In None of the Franks thought, "Oh, you ran away. That's bad." It's like, "Oh, you ran away. That was very smart. Make sure you keep running away effectively and rebuild your power." But if you run away forever, then people are like, "Well, maybe he's actually just weaker," and then that is a problem. So the armies come together. They fight this brutal battle. It's kind of an astounding battle, and the level of slaughter is unprecedented for Franks killing Franks. Right? They were happy to fight non-Franks, and they could be very violent. But when Franks killed Franks in battle, it did happen. But then, as soon as the battle is over, you sort of go back to your corners, you heal the wounded, you reopen negotiations. And this time, Lothar's forces lose and retreat, and Charles and Louis's forces that have come together at this point chase them away and keep fighting and killing as the enemy runs away. So that's 841. But it doesn't end the Civil War because Lothar immediately goes back north to the capital, to Aachen, collects a lot of wealth, and puts out rumors that one of his brothers is dead and the other one is injured. And this process continues and continues into the middle of 842, when finally Charles and Louis come back together and they swear an oath that they're going to fight with each other. They've made a lot of oaths. Our book is called Oath Breakers, after all, but this is the one oath maker moment. Um, Lothar tries one more attempt to split them up and then doesn't work and then says, okay, let's have a negotiated settlement. Let's figure this out. And the Treaty of Verdun in 843 is when, after 6 months of nobles going all over the Caroline, so they agree they're going to split it up into three parts,
Hmm.
right? But nobody knows how big the empire is. They don't have a census. They don't have a map that they can just draw lines on. So they send their nobles out, which is a normal Carolingian thing to do. You send people out to collect information, bring it back, collate the information, and then make decisions. And so the Treaty of Verdun is when they come together in this little place of Verdun. That's convenient because it's central to sort of all three bases of power, and split up the empire. Here's the thing I want to say about Verdun. I'm so glad you asked. Um, I remember as a sophomore in college learning about the Treaty of Verdun. And here's what I learned. I learned that it represented the permanent breaking up of Charlemagne's empire into three pieces. I remember that's not true. Um, I remember that it was written in French, Latin, and German. There are three different sort of copies of this treaty, that demonstrate that just along with the political breakup, there was already a cultural split, that we were beginning to see the formation of France and the formation of Germany. That is also not true.
Yeah.
And I just remember learning that, though, and it's so not true that we actually don't have any copy of any document that was written at this meeting in Verdun. They would have written things down, right? They were a literate culture that wrote things down, but we don't have it. We don't have that written agreement. What we do have is there was an oath that was taken that I mentioned before, the oath making moment, in which Charles and Louis both speak in both French and German along with their nobles, and it's recorded in a Latin chronicle as a way of making sure that everyone understood everything at the time. But it's not a sign of cultural division, it's a sign of multilingualism. That
Hmm.
there's a lot of people there who speak a lot of languages and speak those languages all the time, and so want to make sure everything is happening in all the languages. That is this Oath of Strasbourg. That's where the language stuff happens. The Treaty of Verdun is this agreement. Okay, we're going to split it up in this way. Obviously, Charles is going to take northwestern France and he's going to get Aquitaine. Sorry, Pepin. They then fight a civil war for the next few more years. Louis is going to get the parts to the east. Lothar is going to get this big chunk in the middle in Italy. Exactly who gets what where really matters. And it matters a lot to the nobles because the nobles in Charlemagne's empire and Louis the Pius's empire might have had territories in all the parts. And so suddenly they're only going to have territories in one part or another. And some people lose out and some people gain and some people fight about it. Excuse me. And But they don't know in 843 that the Civil War is over. They just know that they have signed a ceasefire.
Hmm.
They know that, hey, we've got Vikings invading from the north. We've got North African Berbers and Arabs and Muslims invading from the south. We've got the Byzantine Empire sending us letters and saying, hey, can you help us out with this problem? We've got rebels in Saxony. We've got you know the conquest of southern Italy and the popes by North African forces. The Pope saying, "Hey, that's southern Italy. That I'm in central Italy. Could you come help us real quick?" So there's problems, right? Um, there's some bad weather. There are comets in the sky, though that's actually a little earlier. But right, they feel like okay, we need to stop fighting right now. But there's no reason that a year or 2 years or 3 years later they couldn't go right back to it. Um, but that's not what happens, and it's not what happens because they get pulled in different directions. Because Charles gets really focused on Aquitaine, Lothar gets really focused on Italy. People die just from getting older, and so in the end, there is never a moment in which this particular kind of hostility is fully resumed. Charles the Bald, late in life, actually kind of tries it, but then he loses a big battle, and so that's the end of that. And it's easy with hindsight to look back and say, oh, the Treaty of Verdun, that's when they signed the treaty, breaking the empire, done. But that is not at all how they understood it at the moment. For them, history didn't end. It wasn't the end of anything. It was just, okay, this is what we're doing this year. Next year, we'll think about what's good for us. The year after that, we'll think about what's good for us. But it never made sense or quite happened that either the empire came back together in the form that it was, or that a full sort of regional civil war broke out again.